What up, my nerds? I'm Ricardo, the roleplay gamer, and I like to party. So we're bringing back the Skyrim roleplay builds, at least for this one video, and we'll see how we go, see how I feel. And we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. So it's a roleplay build, that's what I'm calling it, so we're going to focus more on roleplaying. That means a greater focus on like backstory and character motivation, playstyle and whatnot. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by giving you a super specific perk by perk rundown, because a lot of these choices, in my opinion, are really quite obvious. I have no doubt that you guys are more than smart enough to take a character concept I give you and just go, yeah, obviously we're going to pick these perks. There are heaps of other people doing those sort of builds. Fudge Muppet in particular put a lot of work and detail into their character builds, and if you're into that sort of thing, I highly encourage you to check those guys out. But we're going to focus on a more nebulous character concept, and then I would love to see what you guys do with it. So with no further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I'd like to introduce you to the secret Necromancer, or hidden Necromancer. You know, you guys can call him whatever the fuck you want. Basically, we're going to take a character that exists, an NPC that exists in Skyrim, and we're going to take his place and reimagine him a little bit. So I was hanging around Markarth, doing the cannibal quest, you know, and I was talking to Brother Verulus, and I'm like, this guy is a little bit creepy. His face is weird and shiny, and he's young, he works in the Hall of the Dead, just hanging around in there. What the fuck's he doing in there all day? He sleeps in the crypt? If you look at his altar, his bed is right there. This guy is a creepy motherfucker. And then I realized, holy shit, he's just masquerading as a priest of Arcade. He's actually a necromancer hiding out in the Hall of the Dead in Markarth, using Arcade as a cover so that he can conduct secret, weird, necrotic rituals with the dead. It's fucking weird, man. But as soon as I start thinking of this, I'm like, wow, that's actually a really cool story and a really cool character that has way more subtlety than most things in Skyrim. So I thought, buddy, let's do it. So essentially, in terms of the gameplay, I kill off Brother Verulus with the character I made named Brother Verulus, and it looks more or less like him. We steal his clothes, we steal his equipment, and we take his place. Oh, it's so good to be evil. So pro tip, if you want to follow suit and make this sort of character kill off Brother Verulus and take his place, I would encourage you to decide early on if you want to be a cannibal. If you do want to be a cannibal, then do the cannibal quest first and kill him off that way. If you don't want to be a cannibal, if you're fine, failing that quest, then sure, just kill him whenever you like in the Hall of the Dead and just like stash him in one of the shelves. That's what I did. But if you are planning to kill him off prior to the Taste of Death quest, you are going to have to install a mod that allows you to kill essential NPCs. You can check the description of this video for all the mods I'm currently using. Just keep in mind, they're not all essential for this character build. So now that we've uncovered Brother Verulus's dark, dank secret, what's he all about? At an early age, Brother Verulus showed a fascination with corpses. Like the plot of Stand By Me, but with a much darker ending that cannot be shown on primetime television or talked about in polite company. Without the magical and religious guidance from his priest uncle, Brother Verulus might have grown up a simple deviant. But after learning the ways of restoration and given the perfect cover as a priest, Brother Verulus could no longer be satisfied with mere observation. If a living being could be healed with restoration magic, then why not a corpse? His adolescent years were spent poring over old dusty tomes and delving into dank crypts, until finally, at the peak of his awkward pimply-faced manhood, Brother Verulus unlocked the secret of necromancy. And his uncle was his first victim. Oh, this sort of shit gets me excited. Alright, so what sort of playstyle are we looking at here? You're of course gonna want to be hanging around in Markarth. You're gonna be spending a lot of time in the Hall of the Dead, just like dragging corpses back. It might be a little bit awkward because I doubt the Hall of the Dead is a safe location, which means the corpses are going to disappear once you're away from the Hall of the Dead for a small amount of time. Plus, if you kill Brother Verulus, his bed is still owned, so you can't sleep in it, so you might have to install a mod that allows you to sleep in owned beds. I'm sure there is one available on the Nexus, but I personally haven't found it myself. An unmodded vanilla way around this would be to get your hands on the abandoned house. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I would be happy doing that quest, the Molag Bal, Mace of Molag Bal quest, and then sort of retconning it in my mind and going, nope, no, we're not actually Molag Bal's champion. We'll just forget about that. We just have this abandoned house. That would be my preference. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility for you to be Molag Bal's champion. It just feels like a bit overshadowing, you know. Our point is we're sort of a lower tier necromancer, I guess. We're a necromancer in hiding, and being a Daedric Prince's champion just seems way too high profile, but I'll leave that decision up to you. So once you've settled into Markarth, you're going to be sneaking out in the dead of night, slithering into people's homes and to the inn, just any opportunity to get someone asleep or alone, and then you get to slit their throat with a nice shiny dagger. The longer the better, IMO. So if you're using Ordinator, you're going to steal their bones so that you can construct your skeleton army. And if you're in Vanilla, you can just raise them as a dead thrall and then bring them back home to store them somewhere. Ideally in the shelves of the Hall of the Dead, but again, like I said, they might disappear. Your ultimate goal is to build up a skeleton/corpse army and take over Markarth. Ultimately, you want to kill as many people as possible and turn them into shambling reanimated corpses. And then, once the heartbeat of every resident of Markarth has been silenced, you will sit on the throne of the Jarl and rule all. So in terms of the actual build, Brother Verulus is an Imperial, so you're going to want to choose that. We're going to be going into Necromancy, of course, and Restoration, I figure, because if we're going to be masquerading as a Priest of Arcade, we've got to know a little bit of Restoration. Now, if you're using the Ordinator perk overhaul, as I am, Restoration has a lot of cool things added in there in terms of like disease along the bottom left of the tree, and that can really help with the whole Necromancer theme and flavor. If you are going vanilla, however, then you can slip into Necromage and sort of justify it that way. Otherwise, don't focus too heavily into Restoration, just have it as a means to heal yourself and, as I said before, to help with your cover as a Priest of Arcade. Looking at Conjuration now, and of course we're going to be focusing on reanimation spells and their related perks. We're not going to be dealing with Atronax at all. If you are rocking Vanilla Skyrim, just like with any Necromancer build, your ultimate goal is going to be Dead Thrall. And this highlights the reason I didn't want to go too deep into the perks, because there's not that much variation in Vanilla Skyrim. A Necromancer is a Necromancer is a Necromancer. If you are using Ordinator, however, again like I am, then I encourage you to dabble in some skeleton creation. Unfortunately, you will have to leave the Hall of the Dead in order to create your skeletons, but it is a great way to give your Necromancer that feeling of an ongoing project. In my mind, a Necromancer is a little more studious than other mage classes. He's not out there flinging fireballs and whatnot. Yeah, he can summon corpses in the field, and that's all well and good. But as far as I'm concerned, when you're role-playing a Necromancer, it's all about hanging back in your dank, dirty lair with corpses shuffling all over the place as you research new eldritch horrors to summon, or new ways to reanimate corpses, or more powerful corpses, and this and that. Oh baby, that just gets me fired up. That's what a Necromancer is to me. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to give you some optional skills that you might like to incorporate into your build. In the interest of sneaking around and paralyzing people as we cut them up and steal their bones and that sort of shit, it would be really handy to have paralysis. And there are 3 ways that we can pull this off. We can be an alchemist and craft a paralysis potion. We can dabble in alteration and eventually use the paralysis spell. And lastly, we can get into enchanting and enchant our fancy dagger with paralysis, which is my personal favorite, but it's also the trickiest method because it requires you to actually find a weapon with paralysis already on it so that you can disenchant it. And finally, the stats. You're going to be putting all your points into Magicka. There is no point investing anything into health or stamina because you're not going to be engaging in combat directly. The only time you'll do any damage yourself with your dagger is when your victim is asleep or they have their back turned. Otherwise, the bulk of your main damage in direct combat is going to be from your minions. Of course, we won't be talking about equipment at all in this video, though we normally would, and this is because you're just using what Brother Verulus has on his body. And that, my friends, is all she wrote. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this slightly different build video. I think, personally, it makes a lot more sense, considering that I'm calling it a roleplay build. I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Taste the game, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you next time.